Hi. We're continuing with a little bit of the history of Sundar Singh from this book, his essential writings, and in the introduction they give you some of his bio. One cannot help but see the similarities between the preparation and conversion of Sundar Singh with that of the Apostle Paul. So I'm going to read you a little bit about Sundar Singh's conversion. Grieving the loss of his mother, who had recently died, he couldn't understand why his father made him attend the Christian school. Bitter and full of inner torment, he was going to show his family what he thought of these colonialists and their Western ways and their foreign faith. One day, Sundar began throwing stones at his teachers, disrupting classes and mocking the missionaries. Later, in the courtyard of his own house, a group of teenage boys gathered around him as he tore a Bible to shreds and then, in a frenzy of rage, hurled it into a fire. Never in the history of the village had anyone publicly burned a sacred book of any faith. Everything had turned black. His mother was dead. His father was shamed. Sundar recounts what would be the most decisive experience of his life. And here's his words. Though at the time I had considered myself a hero for burning the gospel, my heart found no peace. Indeed, my unrest only increased, and I was miserable for the next 2 days. On the third day, when I could bear it no longer, I rose at 3 a.m. and prayed that if there was a God at all, he would reveal himself to me. Should I receive no answer by morning, I would place my head on the railroad tracks and seek the answer to my questions beyond the edge of this life. I prayed and waited for the time to take my last walk. At about 4:30, I saw something strange. There was a glow in the room. At first I thought there was a fire in the house, but looking through the door and windows, I could see no cause for the light. Then the thought came to me, perhaps this was an answer from God. So I returned to my accustomed place and prayed, looking into the strange light. Then I saw a figure in the light, strange but somehow familiar at once. It was neither Siva nor Krishna, I'm not pronouncing probably right, nor any of the other Hindu incarnations I had expected. Then I heard a voice speaking to me in Urdu. Sundar, how long will you mock me? I have come to save you because you have prayed to find the way of truth. Why then don't you accept it? It was then that I saw the marks of blood on his hands and feet, and I knew that it was Jesus, the one proclaimed by the Christians. In amazement, I fell at his feet. I was filled with deep sorrow and remorse for my insults and my irreverence, but also with a wonderful peace. This was the joy I had been seeking. This was heaven. Then the vision was gone, though my peace and joy remained. Then after this occasion and its conviction of Jesus, he makes a public declaration that he's rejecting the Sikh religion for once and for all, and he cuts off his long hair. At this, his family cuts off all ties with him, and he was made to sleep under a veranda. Food was given to him there as if he were an untouchable. And in short order, they turned him out from his home. He was dead to them. Now the Apostle Paul, when he recounts his conversion in Acts 22, 1-8, you'll see a lot of the similarities I was talking about. Brothers and fathers, listen now to my defense. When they heard him speak to them in Aramaic, they became very quiet. And Paul said, I am a Jew, born in Tarsus of Cilicia, but brought up in this city under Gamaliel. I was thoroughly trained in the law of our fathers, and was just as zealous for God as any of you are today. I persecuted the followers of this way to their death, arresting both men and women and throwing them into prison, as also the high priest and all the council can testify. I even obtained letters from them to their brothers in Damascus, and went there to bring these people as prisoners to Jerusalem to be punished. About noon, I came near Damascus. Suddenly a bright light from heaven flashed around me. I fell to the ground and heard a voice say to me, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Who are you, Lord? I asked. I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting, he replied. And then he also goes on to indicate that he was rejected of his own people. But like Sundar, I see in him a regard for his own people and an understanding that they will not appreciate his belief, his new belief, that they will misunderstand him. In chapter 23, verses 1 to 5, Paul says, Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, My brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day. At this, the high priest, Ananias, ordered those standing near Paul to strike him on the mouth. Then Paul said to him, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. You sit there to judge me according to the law, yet you yourself violate the law by commanding that I be struck. Those who were standing near Paul said, You dare to insult God's high priest? Paul replies, Brothers, I did not realize that he was the high priest, for it is written, Do not speak evil about the ruler of your people. Paul then recounts the story to Agrippa in chapter 26 and talks again about his persecution of the Christians. It reads in verses 9 to 11, I too was convinced that I ought to do all that was possible to oppose the name of Jesus of Nazareth. And that is just what I did in Jerusalem. On the authority of the chief priest, I put many of the saints in prison. And when they were put to death, I cast my vote against them. Many a time I went from one synagogue to another to have them punished, and I tried to force them to blaspheme. In my obsession against them, I even went to foreign cities to persecute them. And then he outlines the story again of his conversion and the reason that God caused this to happen, the purpose behind it. On one of these journeys, I was going to Damascus with the authority and commissions of the chief priests. About noon, O king, as I was on the road, I saw a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, blazing around me and my companions. We all fell to the ground, and I heard a voice saying to me in Aramaic, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? It is hard for you to kick against the goads. Then I asked, Who are you, Lord? I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting, the Lord replied. Now get up and stand on your feet. I have appeared to you to appoint you as a servant and as a witness of what you have seen of me and what I will show you. I will rescue you from your own people and from the Gentiles. I am sending you to them, to open their eyes and to turn them from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan to God, so that they may receive forgiveness of sins and a place among those who are sanctified by faith in me. So I just could not help but notice all the similarities in Sundar Singh's meeting with Jesus and that of Paul, and he is being prepared for a ministry, a work that he was to do in India. That's what we will talk about the next time. With this one, I wanted to link a video called Supernatural Attestations to the Bible, Israel, Prophecy, Christ's Perfection, and the Conversion of Paul.